Hi, I'm Gavin,
And I'm Dave.
and you're on the fringe.
Come along with us for a ride on a podcast where we talk about an area or a thing going on in the world that needs more attention, just like you do. Let's go.
On the fringe. Here we go. Well. Welcome back to On the Fringe. I'm Gavin. This is Dave, and we're here today to keep you up to speed on a major situation in the world. What situation is that, Dave?
Well, Gavin, you're leaving me guessing here. It's probably not boycott, right? It's probably not.
It's not
I don't know.
Liberty.
It could be that guy on the kicker from the Ravens who had a bunch of happy
Ooh.
massages.
Well, we can't talk about that because this is a family podcast. Um,
Okay, well, I guess that's not it.
that's not it.
Probably something in Africa would be my second guess.
I think you'd be barking up the right tree there, Dave, because today
Ooh,
we're gonna tell you about not about the very serious and disturbing allegations against Justin Tucker, but we're gonna be talking about the very serious and disturbing goings on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And can you just brief the viewers quickly on where we left off last time we were talking about the situation in the Congo, where things were at that point?
sure. So there is a rebel group called M23. They are backed by Rwanda. Rwanda is a very, very small country next to the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Hmm.
And the M23 rebels had just taken over Goma. So it was a very, very large city in the very eastern part of the DRC. It's right on the border with Rwanda, and it's a very critically important to the rare earth minerals and rare earth metals trade going from the DRC to Rwanda into other parts of the world.
Yeah,
How's
and
that?
that's perfect. That's exactly what the doctor ordered. Um, so yeah, so unfortunately, the situation which we had predicted was going to get worse did get worse. It seemed like in the immediate aftermath of taking Goma, the forces, which at this point internationally acknowledged that there are a lot of Rwandan soldiers in uniform fighting alongside, if not in M23 uniform. It's very hard to tell who exactly is who. It looked like they may have bitten off more than they could chew. Uh, they were taking pretty heavy losses. I think they're still taking pretty heavy losses uh, from a combination of Congolese operated drones and Burundian soldiers that had been moved into southern Kivu province, which is directly south of North Kivu, which is where Goma is, uh, basically to halt the Rwandan advance. M23 and Rwandan forces were moving towards the city of Bukavu, which is the capital of South Kivu, which is a very also a very important city. About 2 million people, a pretty huge and important place, also very important for trade. Um, right across from Rwanda, it's right there. But they were moving. The M23 forces were moving south, and Burundian soldiers, about 2,000, maybe more, had been moved in to prevent that. There was some pretty fierce combat going on. There still is, but the losses, which people are estimating, are definitely in the thousands, certainly on the Congolese side, probably on the Rwandan side as well. And they keep mounting, by the way. Uh, has This has not stopped M23 from entering the city of Bukavu. and effectively capturing it, leaving M23 and Rwandan-backed forces essentially in control all the major trade routes out of both North and South Kivu provinces, basically
Well, they've
ensuring,
also got control of the lake, right? Right next
yeah,
to Goma and right next to Bukavu.
yeah. And I really need to check that because, I do not like getting the names of the Great Lakes wrong. And like the Great Lakes in America, I have a real hard time telling them apart. Um, okay, so oh, well, that would make sense, wouldn't it? That would make sense that it would be on that lake. It's on
Is it
Lake
Lake Kivu?
Kivu. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you got that one
uh,
right, Dave. Um,
well done. Yay, 5 points for Dave.
and we are keeping a score, and we will talk about who won at the end of the season. Um, definitely. Uh, and yeah, I mean the tone on this is, it's incredibly depressing what's going on. Also, in the last, I think, 48 hours, the chief of the defense staff in Uganda, who's also the son of the president, Yoweri Museveni, uh, basically said that Ugandan forces were about to invade a town, essentially a municipality, bordering Uganda. So there's, I think, very serious concern that this is about to be much more than just Rwanda intervening in the east of Congo. We're about to see Uganda come in. Burundi's already there, even though they're fighting for the Congolese. Um,
South Africa was in there too.
well, South Africa was there. South Africa was there with the SADF stabilization force. Um, so there were two, this is confusing, but it's worth mentioning. There were basically two peacekeeping forces working in this region at the same time. There's MONUSCO, which is the UN-backed peacekeeping force of over 18,000 people. And then there was the SADF, which is the Southern African Defense Force, but it was basically Southern African countries pooling their resources as a peacekeeping force independent of the UN in that part of the Congo. Um, they have largely withdrawn both forces at this point uh, for, I think, fairly obvious reasons. They can't really guarantee anyone's safety. And with the South African forces, they were taking a lot of casualties. I think the Burundians were involved in MONUSCO, so they were involved with the UN forces, but the detachment that's currently fighting, they're not UN troops, they're Burundian army troops. Command and control is different. So, this is, I think, rapidly deteriorating doesn't begin to describe the situation
Mm-hmm.
in DRC right now. Um,
Well, it looks like some of the terminology that I've seen is basically it's like the Balkanization. And it'd be like you go back to Yugoslavia, and
yeah.
Yugoslavia was a country, former Yugoslavia was a country. It's split up into modern day Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, FYROM, Kosovo. Am I forgetting anything else? Serbia.
Yeah, Serbia. Come on. And
Serbia
Montenegro.
and
How could
Montenegro
you
as
forget
well. Yes, I
Montenegro?
forgot Montenegro.
Oh
So
my
one country,
God.
I know those Montenegros are going to be furious at me.
Well, they might
Are
be. They
I'm
might
sure they would be. At least I didn't forget Slovenia.
at least I'll always as you know, I briefly did live in Belgrade, which was the capital
Mm-hmm.
of former Yugoslavia. And I once I once had Slovenia described to me as the California of the Balkans, which is just
Mm.
it's just an interesting analogy. that I don't think I ever would have applied to Slovenia, but there you go. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I think
But
Yugoslavia is an apt metaphor. It's, it is different in the sense that when that situation occurred with the collapse of Yugoslavia, there wasn't this degree of foreign intervention.
mhm.
Even when the foreign intervention came, which was later on mostly focusing around Bosnia and Kosovo, um, and there was, I mean, the U.S. was at the forefront of that intervention. Um, that's already there in the Congo, and they've already been through this. I mean, they've had, the war basically right after independence. They had that whole wasn't even called a war, it was called the Congo crisis that went on for about 6 or 7 years. Then you had, 40 years of a brutal dictatorship. Then you had a massive civil war that completely reshaped politics in most of Central and Southern and Eastern Africa. Then you had the Second Civil War, and you've had, years of comparative stability, but constant insurgencies. Um, the whole thing with Rwanda is their presence is not new. Their presence on the other side of the lake is not new. Burundian involvement is not new. Using foreign mercenaries is not new, but this has just blown up so quickly, and I think demonstrated how weak the central government in Kinshasa is. And I think
Mhm.
also, and you'll probably agree with me on this, how sort of weak the international community is right now to enforce anything. The Rwandans have seized their moment, and
Mhm.
other countries are starting to go, okay, why are we not doing this? Because
Yep. And
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry. There's a delay. Jump in. Finish.
Oh, no, no, no. It's just, I think Yugoslavia as a metaphor works to the extent that we're seeing an implosion of authority, but I don't think it captures the degree of foreign intervention that's taking place. And I think now whether this happens or not, but it looks like particularly Uganda and Rwanda, they're about to take a big slice of the pie and they're not giving it back. Um,
No.
yeah, it looks like they're on the verge of seriously rewriting the borders in this part of the world. And as we talked about on the last Congo episode, I mean, this is something that has massive ramifications for pretty much anyone that uses technology in the world today.
Yep, it really does. And I mean, I would say probably the Rwandans and the Ugandans are controlling a lot of the pipelines where these rare earth minerals are actually moving from there through there and then off to other countries, especially to China for Chinese cobalt. But
Mm.
you look at this and you go, okay, this is not a big issue, I think, in the United States right now because we are trying to get more rare earth minerals from Ukraine. And most of Ukraine's rare earth minerals are in the very eastern part, in the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. And there are some in the very eastern part of Ukraine that are not within those Russia controlled territories. But I think the US government is looking at this right now and going, we can get our rare earths from Ukraine because the Ukrainians owe us. And I'm looking at this and going, okay, possibly, but you need to have a backup plan as well. And the backup plan might be don't piss off Paul Kagame and let Paul Kagame go in there and stabilize and basically take what he needs to allow those minerals to keep moving from Congo and stay, in international supply chains. So
Yeah,
could be a
I,
little bit off there. But I really think that's the key is everybody wants stability. And they're looking at this from a 30,000-foot view and going, well,
Hmm.
Kagame is probably the most stable force in that part of the world. So we're just going to let him do what he wants to do. And if the country breaks up and implodes, okay, not that big of a deal. As long as we actually have, supply chains that are strong, then that's really the only important thing that we need.
Uh, I mean, and this is the problem is they're
And that's
looking
kind
at,
of a practical realist, but
yeah, they're looking at it from 30,000 feet, and it's not taking place from 30,000 feet. It's taking place from 1 foot away. Someone's coming at you with a gun. The issue is, well, there are multiple issues with that view, which I agree that I think there are probably people in the current administration who absolutely hold to that. And I think there are reasons for that viewpoint. I do think it's incorrect. I think you have to look at Paul Kagame and go, yes, he is a force of stability, whether you agree with the form of stability he's taken or not, or yeah, with the direction he's taken. Um, but there's no clear plan for secession. We don't know who comes after Paul Kagame, and he's not a spring chicken. He's not an elderly gentleman, but he's not that young. There's no clear, obvious person to come after him. Um, that's a concern. There's also the concern that, yeah, this doesn't immediately affect. If he can secure the supply chain, there's no immediate effect, except, again, Goma, 1 million people. Bukavu, 2 million people. This is not a sparsely populated part of the world. There were a lot of people. A lot of them are going to flee. There's going to be massive displacement. There's already incredibly grave human rights abuses going on. People are fleeing for their lives. That is going to have a ripple effect throughout Congo. Again, not a small country in terms of population. That is going to affect the countries around it, most of which are already not particularly stable. And, what countries are around them? Central African Republic, South Sudan,
mhm.
uh, Burundi, even countries that are relatively stable like Zambia, they're probably going to be affected. Angola is going to be affected. This is not happening in a vacuum. And this is going to disrupt, not inconceivable that it could disrupt other supply chains. Yet,
Mhm.
Rwanda can control their corner. Maybe. I mean, if the casualties that are being reported from the Rwandan army are happening, Paul Kagame's reign may not be as secure as he thinks. If the army is taking the casualties, because it's not, again, not a huge country. The army has a great reputation, but it's not massive. At a certain point, there's going to be some kind of reckoning within the command if they keep taking losses in the thousands. Which, if they
But
keep
I
it,
would think if they're able to keep control over eastern parts of the DRC,
hmm,
I could see that as those as being justifiable losses.
well, I could
If
see that.
if it's if it's all for nothing, then Paul Kagame's got a real problem on his hands.
Well, and I think that's why they advanced to Bukavu. I think he has to justify this to people, and it has to be seen as a fait accompli. So there's going to be no official announcement of of because they're still not saying we're there. They're saying we may
Mhm.
be cooperating, we may be working with
Right.
them.
It's been M23 primarily, from what I've read.
Well, again, we're not sure who's wearing what uniforms.
Those are just the reports, though. I mean, it's almost like in Crimea in 2014, you had the little
Yeah.
green men.
Yep.
Okay, are they little green men? No,
No.
they're not.
No. And then at some point they were like, yeah, there were Russian troops the whole time. What are you, stupid? And I suspect that will be a similar outcome with this, where at a certain point after they've secured, they've taken Bukavu, but they haven't really secured it. After they've secured the territory they want to secure, um, then there's going to be a more official, we're setting up a government, we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what Kagame is trying to set up. But I do think
Yeah.
if they keep sustaining these losses, if Burundi gets more direct in the sort of defensiveness that they're currently in, because they are basically taking a defensive posture. They're not, the border, they're not going across their actual border with Rwanda. They just have troops on the Congolese side. Um, if they were to get more actively involved and actually aggressive with Rwanda, that's a completely different, that's a totally
Mm-hmm.
different ball game. But we're at the point where you have to start asking yourself what's going to happen when that happens. Because so many things have happened in the last couple of weeks that people were like, well, they're probably not going to go into Goma. They're probably not going to go to the south. They're probably not going to get into to Bukavu. Uh, and they've done all of these things. So now, yeah, seriously, you have to plan. Even what you said last time about maybe they have their eye on Katanga. That kind of seemed far-fetched. I don't know. They might have those plans.
I mean,
Um,
I think they're going to go as far as they can. They're going to gobble up as much as they can
well,
because why
again, I
wouldn't they?
think, yeah, well, I think it's also what you said. They're now in a situation where they have to justify their losses. Um, and they have to justify the sacrifice. And they can't walk away from this with nothing.
Hmm.
What kind of reaction they get from Kinshasa, I think, is really unclear. And it's just, a lot of the Ugandan aggression, I think, just comes from the sense that Kinshasa's kind of powerless. The UN forces are kind of powerless. South Africa is not willing to commit itself to a degree where they would be really a major force multiplier. Um, I think there's just a sense that, this territory is ripe for the taking and
Hmm.
it can be carved up pretty much on any lines you care to draw.
Well, another thing too, I mean, this is opening up a can of worms here. We haven't even talked about other private PMCs, Chinese PMCs or Russian PMCs
Yeah.
or PMCs from other countries that are probably getting in there right now or that have been in there for a while because this whole entire thing, you just said this, could go up in smoke very, very quickly. And I mean,
Things are just moving
The
so
DRC
fast.
is not stable to begin
No.
with, and those areas are so far from Kinshasa, the capital, which is probably, geez, I would say 1,500 to 2,000 miles.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah,
Far
1,500
away.
miles away. I'm trying to look and see.
It's very far away from Bukavu.
Yeah, it's incredibly far.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have a lot of control, and the country is very mountainous and very diverse as it is. So this is just a huge, huge mess that nobody's talking about, and I think nobody wants to get involved in. And they're just, going, okay, this is maybe going to go away, but this is
It's
going to
not.
fester and get worse. This is going to get
It's
much, much worse over the
it's
next
gonna
probably
blow
six
up.
months to a year.
It's gonna
Yeah.
blow up in a big way. And I've said this before. I'm gonna put my flag up there again. This is not, oh, there's this thing happening out in Africa. There's always something happening out there. This is not a regional conflict anymore. This is a major, major international conflict with major international repercussions. And people really need to be paying attention because I say this with a lot of confidence. they are redrawing borders in Central Africa. The borders will not be the same after this conflict. The sort of international playbook of, the rules-based order and there's a certain way of doing things that has been torn up and thrown in the fire pit. And it's being demonstrably proven out in Eastern Congo right now that this is the case. And people need to be paying attention to this. But it's it's far away and it's in the Congo and people aren't. But God, it's an important situation out there. And I just want to end this by saying, please think of the people, because the Congolese people have been through so much and they are having the absolute worst experience you could have as a civilian population right now. So please, keep them in your thoughts and try to do what you can, because this is a very horrific situation unfolding out in North and South Kivu province.
That it is. That it is. And we're going to leave it at that for now. Thank you guys very much for listening. Comment and subscribe. Give us some feedback and tell us what we did right and what we did wrong. We always appreciate it and love hearing from you guys.
We always do.
Yep. Thank you all. Take care.